Right Music Channel. I am Mike McWilliams, your host. Thank you so much for joining this evening. So glad to be here again. We made it through another week, about to start another one. But I'm glad that you decided to spend a little bit of your time with me as I make my adjustments here. That's a little better. That looks good. Yeah, that looks good. I think the camera looks a little cleaner tonight. If you clean it every now and then, it actually looks better. I hope you guys have had yourself a great weekend. I sure did. Um, if you haven't had the chance to, I just released a video today on my regular content side, not a live stream, but regular content of an unboxing of two guitars. It was a kind of a half of unboxing because the sound gremlins got to me, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to do the whole unboxing. But if you haven't had a chance to check that out, do go scroll through my channel, take a look at the latest video, and take a look at that. I think you'll find it interesting. What else is going on here? Michael Watson, first in the house this evening. Hey, how you doing? Mr. Watson, so glad to see you, sir. I hope you had yourself a good week, a good weekend. It's beautiful weather. As you can see, I'm not sweating anymore like I was last week. The weather here in Holland has been going up and down. Tonight it's actually slightly chilly, believe it or not. So, don't know what to make of that. Ben Allmark, good evening. Good evening to you, sir. And to everybody else, hope you're all doing well. I hope you guys are all doing well as well. As we wait for more people to join into the chat here, I shall ramble on a little bit. Um, you know, um, I did that unboxing video, and very quickly, because I put out a newsletter with some of my clients, regular clients, stuff that I get in as I get it in. And boy, that Orville by Gibson, it's not going to last very long. I told him I wasn't going to get to it till tomorrow because it's my weekend. Sunday is my sacrosanct day off, other than to sit here, write a script, and then sit here and share my thoughts with you guys, which I enjoy doing. No work. Uh, this is actually a pleasure. Anthony Thornhill in the house. Hey, Anthony, how you doing, brother? I appreciate you chiming in down in the comments section on the video today, man. It's always good to see you supporting me by checking out the regular content and let me know you saw it. So thank you, man. I appreciate that. But yeah, that Orville by Gibson seems to be something quite popular, which is great because, quite frankly, I don't want to let that Greco go. I'm in love. It is, you should, the dealer's motto or code is, don't get hooked on your own supply. And I'm afraid in the case of guitars, it is the same thing. I am enamored with that Greco Strat from 1978. I have to be honest with you. I haven't played acoustically, it sounds great. Plugged in, it sounds even better. And I even like the color. So, yeah, that's going to be a tough one. I'm putting that one away anyway, because there's something that's known as a I can't remember it. I looked at it the other day. Somebody was explaining it to me, and I looked it up, and now I can't remember it. God, I'm getting old. But it is a vintage guitar. Guitars that were made in the 1970s now are kind of, I guess, a shorter way of describing the word is a pre-vintage, or about to be vintage, or transitioning. Oh, transitional vintage. That's the word. Transitional vintage. Have you guys heard that word? So now any 70s guitars, and that's any 70s guitars, are transitional vintage, because that means they're getting very close up to their 50th year mark, which is the true mark of a vintage guitar. A vintage guitar is something that's 50 years old. That's why back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, those Les Pauls were not considered to be vintage. They were just used. And but that changed. The market changed, and we've discussed why that happened before. But transitional vintage, and yeah, I just that's one I think about because you can't find those in white. I've been scouting around, say, well, maybe I could find a second one. Maybe it's not as in good condition at fix or something like that. But no, I can't find that. That was a needle in a haystack in a haystack. So yeah, I'm kind of in love with that Strat. For a guy who never really was into Strats, I've really fallen in love with that guitar. It's a joy to play, actually. A little heavy, but not unreasonable. It's about as heavy as a Les Paul, so 7 pounds, maybe 8 pounds. Not so bad. So that's funny. Yeah, I won't be letting that one go anytime soon. I want to hold on to that one. I was reading an article on Premier Guitar. Start off tonight's discussion, and I was really fascinated with the story here. I'll share with you in a minute. Just to back up a little bit, I was scouring through YouTube, and I came across a guy who had some Chipsons. Ben Allmark says, "Heavy's where the tone is at." No, uh, you know, I, 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 I have no answer to that. I haven't got into the heavy issue, the heavy and light issue, but I've had some light ones that sounded good. But I don't know. A heavier guitar feels better to me. I don't know why. That Orville by Gibson is the lightest SG I've ever held in my hands in my life. And I know it was a fine instrument because when you get it has that gravitas. It's what I talk about in a fine instrument. You know when you have a fine instrument in your hand because it zooms a gravitas to it that it's of some substance. I thought I could get that out of substance, and really that guitar has it, but it's so light that it feels uncomfortable in some ways. It's comfortable to play, I'm sure, but it's so light that it just. So I maybe just with me, I just like heavier guitars. I'm starting to figure, and my back is not a heavy guitar kind of back. I've got to tell you, an unfortunate combination there. But I was reading this article in Premier Guitars about about Slash's first guitar, the legendary Chris Derringer um, copy of a Les Paul. Because there was a guy on YouTube that was showing off his Gibsons and somehow it came up in my feed. And he seemed like a pretty cool dude. And, he was somebody that brought up about the integrity of it. I didn't want to be that guy, but someone brought up about the integrity of buying Chipsons, and he said, "Well, Slash's first guitar was not a real Gibson; it was a copy, and now Gibsons are making copies of that copy." And why can't this Chipson be considered to be just like that? And there's a lot of you know loop problems with that but argument, but I'm not going to argue that. But I said to him, well, man, Chris Derringer was the Daring Chris Daring was the builder of that guitar, and he really put a lot of years of skill and craftsmanship, selection of the woods. He really wanted to build as close to possible at that time to what was happening at the Gibson factory in 1957, 58, 59, 60. And the Chipson, not so much. But I said, man, I said to him, as long as you stamp fake on the back of those, rock on. And he said, oh yeah, I'll make sure I do that. And so he's all good. If he stamps fake on the back of that, that's fine. But it got me into reading an article here about that guitar. And as it turns out, actually, I've been telling this story wrong. I've been saying, yeah, it was Chris Daring. That was the legendary Les Paul that was used on the Appetite for Destruction recording. And that is the one that Gibson has been making copies of, you know, quite a few of, and touting it, which is ironic because, again, as I pointed out, it's a copy of a guitar that was a copy of, anyway, you guys know that. But it actually turns out that there were three Appetite for Destruction Les Pauls. Let me just read this to you, and then I'm going to lead into. And you're saying this. How? What does this have to do with tonight's subject? And it has a lot to do with it. You know, it's what inspired me to come up with tonight's discussion. In the early 1980s, during Guns N' Roses' formative period, Slash was living hand to mouth, struggling to eat and pay for a drug habit. He certainly lacked the wherewithal to accumulate fine vintage instruments. These guys couldn't put two nickels together to buy a pack of Marlboros back then, said the former manager, but she let them stay at her house and made arrangements around town along with some friends to get Slash some decent instruments. And that first one was a Sunburst Gibson. Uh, it belonged to the 70s blues guitarist Steve Hunter, and he traded his BC Rich for it at Howie and Huberman's place, Guitars Are Us. At Howie Huberman's place, Guitars Are Us. So this was the first one that was used on Appetite for Destruction. I'm not going to read you this whole article, but I'm just going to quickly scan through this. And Now, as it turns out, it didn't have the original PAFs in it, um, although it was a 59. Uh, it actually had them in it, but they took them out and put Seymour Duncan's in. And at the time, Slash paid $2,600, which in in the early '80s, or in the mid '80s, that's a lot of money. That was a lot of money, but that's what a 59 was going for. That had replacement pickups in it. So that was the first one. Then there was two others. There was the Roman wrist replica, which was the one that I just spoke about. Then the second one was, of course, the one we know, Chris Daring. And then there was one built by Peter Max Baronet. And in this photo, they show all three of them. And all three of them have a very similar top to them. They all have a very similar top to them. But apparently, all three of these were used in the recording of Appetite for Destruction in some way or another. And so that got me thinking back to, again, what is, if this is the fact, I could somewhat say, okay, it's the Chris, I'm sorry, it's the Chris, yeah, the Chris Daring guitar. And, even though it's not one of theirs, they're going to, make modern improvements to it and, make it something a little bit more than put that out and say it's in celebration of that. Fair enough. But in this case, there's three of them. So then you can expect the wrist version to come out next, and then the baronet version next. you know, and and it just goes on and on and on. And these really tentative connections that they try to make the things in order to sell things really just got me thinking today. Got me thinking. The other thing that got me thinking is I was speaking to one of my guitar clients, and he was saying, "Yeah, things are slowing down. Stuff is sitting here." I said, "Well, for me, I look at it as I know things are slow, but it's more of accumulate kind of thing, stock kind of time. And he agreed with that to a certain extent. Um, but he said that things were slow. And that article and that statement came to tonight's discussion. Dear guitar manufacturer, the consumer is tapped, and part of it is that gross output of stuff that we're getting hammered with by the manufacturers, and the other half of it is the reality on the ground that the consumer's kind of tapped, and and the fact that this comes to a head quite often, especially as a YouTuber. When I think about content and things that I want to talk about, um, well, I'm getting ahead of myself again. Let me back up. So we're going to take a deep dive into a topic that's been on everyone's mind lately: the impact of the current economic downturn on the high-end and mid-range guitar markets. There has indeed been a downturn in those markets, as I've demonstrated before. Whether you're a Gibson, Fender, or Epiphone fan, there's a lot to unpack here about how these changes are affecting us as consumers, distributors, and even independent guitar shops. And of course, I'll talk a little bit about how this shapes things with YouTubers and how they approach reviewing things, because we're starting to see. I guess we could start from there a little bit. We're starting to see a lot of YouTubers in this our little market that are saying, "Hey, I only do promotions if it's something that I really believe in, or in my case, I won't do them at all. I'll review if I buy it, I'll review it, and if it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not." And also the discussions about what is being reviewed. There has been a subtle that I believe will grow if you read the tea leaves, shift from newer items being discussed to people reaching back and saying, "Hey, here's some old gear that I want to review." Second, stuff that's been out for a while. Now, part of that is because there is a third wave of guitar YouTubers that has started. There was the first wave of cats, like China Guitar Skeptic. Bless his soul, he's no longer with us. Guys like that who got started out. Then there was a second wave. I consider myself at the end of the second wave. And then there's the new third wave. And these guys are reviewing older gear because, first of all, when you start a YouTube channel, you quickly realize that if you don't have a plethora of interesting crap coming through all the time, it's a tough sell. So you really got to look around at what you got and start from there. Plus, it's a good place to start at too, because it teaches you how to review things. So, but a lot of and those are the things that my feed is getting, and they're popular and they're gaining popularity, and simply because the consumer is tapped, you know, and that's reflected. I think that YouTube is kind of a microcosm of things, if you will, and certainly you can see where things are going if you keep an eye on what people are doing within your little click within whatever YouTube thing you're into. I do believe that that is quite true. Um, First, let's talk about the economic downturn. Many sectors are feeling the pinch, and the guitar sector is no exception. High end and mid range guitar from brands like Gibson and Fender and Epiphone are luxury items. I've discussed this before. At the end of the day, um, a functional guitar. Um, I tell the story quite often of on Donna Summer's Bad Girls album. Um, Skunk Baxter got the guitar from Guitar Center down the street from the recording studio like an hour before the recording from the $25 bargain guitar bin. And that has made history, that guitar. So, a functional guitar is a necessity. A $2,500 dollar guitar is a luxury. if you guys follow what I mean there. Patrick Jean Blank Hardy says, "Good evening, everyone. 4:19 p.m. here. Well, good evening or pre-evening. Good pre-evening to you, sir." um, Again, wherever you guys are at, morning, afternoon, or evening, I want to say welcome and thank you for tuning in. We're talking about just the consumer being tapped. I thought that this would be an appropriate thing to talk about tonight, to write about today. I'm actually enjoying writing out the scripts. It's a kind of a fun thing because I always like writing. But I thought it would be an interesting topic because I'm just seeing so many things in the news, whether it's restaurants. I come from Southern California. So I watch, even though I live here in Amsterdam, I watch the local news channel, KTLA 5, quite often, just to keep, plus my parents are there in LA, so I want to kind of keep an eye on them. And my sister, but just alarmed by the restaurant closures, the stories about the high inflation on items and things like that. And there's no way that that's not going to come out in our particular sector of things. And I just want to talk about outcomes or possible outcomes tonight. With economic uncertainty, discretionary spending is often the first to get out. According to recent data, consumers are becoming more cautious with their spending. This means that fewer people are willing to drop thousands of dollars on a new Gibson Les Paul or a custom Fender Strat. Instead, they're either sticking with what they have or opting for cheaper alternatives. The "I'm good" motto of my channel. If I ever do put out a mug or a T-shirt, the slogan of this channel is "I'm good." And sticking with what you have or opting for cheaper alternatives is the very definition of what I mean by "I'm good." I'm always striving to bring to your awareness the cheaper and, in a lot of cases, far superior alternatives there are out there in the market. And it's a pleasure to be able to, and a blessing to be able to do so. And there's that. I was thinking of buying, Patrick Jean says, of buying the Squire J Mark, the J Messias. Sorry, I don't have my reading glasses. Jazzmaster. Thousands of comments about the pickups on that guitar and with a guitar with a Gibson style bridge on it. Well, comments are one thing. What you think about it when it's in your hands is going to be another thing. Um, I again, this if you have the ability to try it out before buying, that's always your best way to go. But this is again what I'm saying about us as consumers having a very narrow channel we're being fed down. So maybe you can't. I don't know. But you know, um, I know that the jazz master very well, and you can't really screw up a jazz master. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen a bad jazz master, so there's that by anybody, Squire or otherwise. So there is that. And if it's one of their signature models, then that means that they've put a little bit of extra effort to it. And as I've said, I've got a Squire right here in a bag behind me, the Telly, and I think that they did fantastic work on that guitar. So there's that as well. Um, Now, this shift in spending behavior is starting to ripple through the entire guitar market. So how is this downturn affecting distributors and independent guitar shops? Again, I had that discussion with one of my guys the other day as I was trying to pitch him on some deals. And the conversation was a good one. For one, distributors who cater to high-end guitar brands are seeing a slowdown in orders. Inventory that's been sitting in warehouses is becoming harder to move. This surplus leads to increased holding costs and can put pressure on their margins, which is really where it's at. You know, we have to think about the nuts and bolts behind a mom and pop shop, even on a large scale like a Sweetwater, which is not a mom and pop. I know big distributors, they all fall under the same economic rules. And one of them is the pressure on their profit margins caused by stuff sitting around. Um, Again, remember that famous video of Gibson with those guitars. Instead of giving them to schools or doing something productive with them, they decide to destroy them for the insurance. This is one of the things, because that this is pointing to that could happen. In that case, it did. Independent guitar shops, on the other hand, are feeling the strain even more acutely. These shops often rely on high ticket sales to stay afloat, and high, margins too. When you bring something in, like I said, they're going to offer you, if it's something spectacular, yeah, you can make a deal with them, but they're still going to stay within a 20% margin of what they plan on selling it for. And that's also including the cost of the running the electricity and the light bulbs. So yeah, keep that in mind. With consumers tightening their wallets, however, these shops are finding it harder to justify stocking expensive models that may not sell quickly. Um, yeah, I'm seeing this in some of my good friends in the UK shops that I've been in contact with since that trip that I made with Colin to Denmark Street, and that's where this is coming from. This could force many to rethink their inventory strategies, perhaps focusing more on affordable, lower margin items that turn over faster. And that's kind of why, with importing things from Japan, you have the advantage of there being a weekend, and import costs, shipping costs are way down, and you can import in a lot of mid rangy, kind of lower to not even lower, mid rangy guitars, um, for relatively inexpensive. It's inexpensively from Japan at this point, as it stands right now, and you would turn a small profit on those, but you could churn through a lot of them. That's my business model that I'm describing here. More affordable, lower margin items is where that's my bread and butter. Additionally, smaller shops, but I don't have a shop. I wouldn't do brick and mortar. I just, and do it the way that I do. Additionally, smaller shops that depend heavily on in-store sales are struggling as foot traffic declines. You know, Again, not related at all. But very shocking over in China, in Hong Kong, and in Shanghai, places that I've spent some time in. I know them very well. To see the decline in terms of the foot traffic in those major cities because of the economic downturn that's occurring there is quite alarming. Just especially in Hong Kong, there's a street that I used to walk up. The hotel I stayed at all the time. Every time I went to Hong Kong, same hotel. Walk up the street to a British breakfast bar and have Irish breakfast. Used to love that. And I saw footage recently of that area, and it looked like a bomb dropped on it. Everything was closed. Not a lot of foot traffic. So foot traffic really comes about when the consumer is feeling happy. Hey, I got some money. Yeah, let's go out and take a walk. Let's stroll, or let's take a ride. Let's do something. And you might spend some money. But when everybody's tight wallet, they're sitting at home. Like, who's on Netflix? Maybe pass the popcorn. you know, and they're not really thinking about walking. And this again, I'm focusing in and out of our particular, again, like I said, circle of things, the guitar market. But I'm also trying to every now and then expand the telescope out a little bit and see the broader market. And So yeah. Additionally, smaller shops that depend heavily on in-store sales are struggling as foot traffic declines. They might not have the resources to compete with online retailers as well, making it harder for them to survive in this tough market. Unfortunately, we're in another make or break environment for mom and pop shops, um, because of these economic pressures. And the ones that we had may come out on the other end of this having even fewer, even fewer. Um, yeah. Additionally, smaller shops that depend upon this see a percentage drop in high-end guitar sales, um, because of the consumer, a drop in foot traffic, and average holding period for unsold high-end inventory can lead to in pressures as well on the business. You know, um, a quick, a small dealer like myself, it's all built on quick turnaround. Get it in, get good stuff in, get interesting stuff in, get in stuff that has got a little bit of a wow factor because you've got to compete with 55,000 other million pieces of wood out there. But it's a lot easier in an environment like this. As a matter of fact, it's advantageous because there's a lot of the expenses that I don't have to bear that mom and pops do. So, but I do depend upon them as some of mom and pops are some of my clients. So, of course, it's not a good thing. So let's talk about outcomes. I said I like to talk about outcomes. Let's talk about some outcomes here that I've outlined. Mike, is it hard to find a Squire Venus guitar made from 1997 to 98 in Japan? No. I can look into that, and the next live stream, I'll tell you what I find out. I will make a note of that. I can find just about anything. Condition is the issue. I found some spectacular things that uh, I'll let you guys in on one. I have drawn a bead on a super reel from 1982. If you know anything about Greco super reels, these pickups here, the ones that I have copies of, the Dry's famous Dry Z pickups, came in the super reels. This is a copy of made by Q Pickups in Croatia of those from his Dry Z's that he owns. I have a super reel with the Dry Z's. It either has the Dry Z's in it or what were they called? The Trick, I forget something. Anyway, pickups in it. But again, a very rare and a very hard thing to find, and a very well known up there, respected guitar. But I had to go through a lot of them to find one. Well, not a lot. The few that I found, I had to go through ones that I thought was of good condition. It's always condition. I won't buy it unless it's of good condition. Condition is not an issue. It's probably easy to find. Hit the like button, he says. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. Yes, guys, hit that like button. What are we doing here? Yeah, we're doing all right. All right. So let me move on. So, outcomes. What could the long term outcomes be if this trend continues? Here are a few possibilities. Market consolidation. Smaller independent guitar shops may be forced to close, as I was indicating before, leaving larger retailers and online giants to dominate the market. This could reduce competition and lead to less variety for consumers. I never really touched on that before. I added in here when I was typing this out because I to remind myself, make that point. I always talk about being led down that channel of less options. Um, but this is brought about by reduced competition. The more competition you have, the more, Again, in communist Russia, they had bread. They didn't have like wheat bread or sourdough or pumpernickel. It was bread. And that's because there was no competition for anybody else to make sourdough or pumpernickel or anything else. And when you get into that kind of environment, that's one of the outcomes. Shift in product focus. We see major brands like Gibson and Fender shifting more of their focus to budget friendly lines. Isn't that interesting? I think Fender, as you guys notice, I'm a little easy on Fender. I give them a pass, even though they came out with 2,700 different versions of the Stratocaster. But anyway, um, the Squire Classic Vibe line was their most successful line. Um, they didn't over promote it. They didn't, there was enough YouTube coverage of it, but it had an organic feel to the rollout of it, and it proved to be an excellent line of quality guitars that anybody, like I said, got one sitting right here in the back that anybody could get behind, whether you bought the Strat or the Telly or the Jazzmaster or whatever. And that knocked the ball out of the park for them. And that was a big bulk of their sales at a good time, too. And so, again, they're not stupid. Like, hey, we made a buck, 10 over here, and we're only making 50 cents over here. Which one are we going to go for? While this could make their products more accessible, it could also mean fewer new models or innovations in the high end market. Well, I told you, capital drives innovation. So until we get capital flowing again, which the subject of this discussion tonight is the lack thereof, we're not going to see the innovation anyway. But I thought I would throw it in there. The fewer new models, I actually consider that to be a good thing. Because again, like I said, how many versions of the Stratus Fender going to come out with? The American One, the American Two, American Pro 5000. Come on. You Interestingly enough, these could be some outcomes. Increase in used gear sales. As new guitar sales drop, the market for used gear is likely to expand. I talked about this. I said that, this, oddly enough, because the show must go on. We're tightening our belts, but we're still going to feed that dragon of gas, in a little bit of FOMO, the icing of FOMO. But we're still going to do that. But one of the outcomes of that is loosening up the secondary market. Possible. Consumers looking for high quality instruments at a lower price might turn to the secondhand market, which could become more robust and competitive going forward. This is my pipe dream. This is what I hope, but it is a possibility. Some of the Squire specials, like say made in China, but they're made in Taiwan. Yeah, yeah. Light, I mean, yeah, I got you. James in the house. How you doing, sir? How's your health? How you doing? Good to see you, sir. Hope you're doing fine. Thank you so much for showing up. We're talking about outcomes. Outcomes here. Yeah, Patrick, I hear you. You know, these Squires were made in Indonesia. The classic Vibe line are Indonesian, and the Chinese ones. I have two of them, or at least one, and then a parts caster of one. Again, I don't get on Fender too much because it's kind of hard to mess this up. It's not it's a and they don't, and but they made a move like that because they saw a benefit in that market, and they took advantage of it. And we're seeing Harley Benton actually start to grow up in terms of its acceptance. filling in that hole that Epiphone has kind of evaporated out of. It would seem. It would seem. Um, Rise of online retail. With fewer people visiting physical stores, online sales channels are expected to grow even more. That's my thinking. I think we're gonna see, but anybody can see that. This could accelerate the trend towards digital showrooms and virtual shopping experiences. I saw something akin to that that made me put this down because this one shop in Japan, they were taking 3D views of the guitar, so you could sit there and scroll it around and look at it from top to bottom and side to side, and you could turn it, you could zoom in, and you could look at the neck, see, and in great detail, you could zoom in and see if there's any cracks in the neck or anything like that. So I find that far more acceptable than a 2D image. That would be acceptable to me if everybody would do that. I would like that. I thought that was pretty cool, and the fact that they got a guy they've hired just to do that. Take a picture of every guitar as it take it out, take a picture of everyone that goes. But you know what? Hey, you know, Sweetwater does the same thing. They take a picture of everyone, but it's not like that. You can't twist it, turn it, and do what that shop did. But you could see the virtual shopping experience expand, changing how we buy guitars in the future. Um, So I see an outcome of being a growth in the secondhand market. As a matter of fact, I'm betting on that in a business sense because I think that these kind of economic headwinds drive. Like I said, the show still must go on. Uh, Not everybody's going to stop in their tracks. They're going to be very selective, but the gyms that are in the secondhand market um, that you can turn around, the margins aren't so big, but you know what? You can turn a lot of them around. That would loosen that market up from the stagnation that it's at today. And a percentage of sales moving, a higher percentage of sales, of course, moving to online platforms. But there again, that is leading to the death knell of what few mom and pop shops we still have left. Now, let's talk about how all this affects me as a content creator. If consumers are spending less on high end and mid range guitars, it means there might be less interest in reviews and demos of these pricer models. You know, sure, I mean, I think back of those $1,000 Gibson pickups that came in, the sandalwood box with the felt lining. I mean, I thought they were supposed to just go inside of a guitar. Well, why the pretty case? And the ridicule that came from that. That's what I call a honest backlash, and the memes as well. Oh, the memes. The memes on that one, if you haven't seen them, look them up, are delicious. They really are. But there's less interest in reviews of demos of these pricer items, and that really is just the feeling that I have. Never reviewed those kind of things anyway. And the things that I do review are the things of myth. And in that regard, I want to be a myth buster as well. I want to say, hey, okay, we're talking about something from the let's get it. Let's get one of those. Let's bring it over. Let's take a look at it and see if those backstage Chinese whispering over the decades prove out to be true. Usually doesn't. Usually doesn't. Um, so there'd be a focus on highlighting, of course, more affordable guitars, which is what I do. and gear that offer great value for money, um, not only for the budget conscious, but for those who have the money to spend as well, for everybody, But certainly I focus on this channel is about focusing on the budget conscious. It always has been. Maybe my time has come. Maybe my prince has come. Sunbase in the house. Hey, sir, how you doing? Hey, Mike, popping in late. Unfortunately, a photo, even 3D, never is going to capture the neck profile. I know, man. That the tact. I always talk about that tactile thing. Holding it in your hand, and is this something that is comfortable to you? And that's really good. And again, you've got your Monday neck and you got your Friday neck. Again, a Monday neck is a guy just came in, he's ready to work. He's bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, as they used to say, and he works this neck and he makes it to perfection. By Friday, when he's thinking about hitting the disco on Saturday, those necks are not as good. It's just human nature. It's just not going to be as good of a neck. And those differences in manufacturing go across in the individual guitars. And unless you get a chance to hold each and every one, see the one that because maybe that Friday neck may be the one for you, you know. But unless you hold it, you don't know. So there is that. I agree. Um, Next thing I was thinking is about focusing more. Now, this is me talking about myself, but observations about other YouTube channels that I've been seeing. DIY and modding content, tutorials on how to upgrade and modify existing gear. It probably is a good way to go as well. I've been thinking. My video where I took the speaker out of the Fender Champ is doing great. That was a simple DIY, how to use solder, how to solder, take it apart, put it back in, what to expect, kind of deal. But that proved to be popular. So you will indeed see more of that from me. Uh, Again, because I'm not interested in talking about expensive gear. And my whole thing is maybe if you're maybe do some of what you got to make it even nicer. Just saying. And of course, the crowning jewel of this channel, exploring used gear. Um, I talk about what to look for when buying used, uh, showcasing interesting vintage finds, and how these vintage finds are not just great guitars, but how they can help you save money. So you can expect a lot more of that coming out of me. But on YouTube in general, again, like I said, you'll see more guitar YouTubers falling in one of these categories because it's just the way things go, in this kind of market. It's the tea leaves, I say. Educational content, in-depth discussions about guitars. 5 Watt World is a good example of that. The history of this or the history of that. Those videos do well because it falls under educational content where you're not necessarily, it'll give you gas, like "Ah, I wish I could get that 57, uh, whatever. But it educates you on it. It lets you know why that guitar has, as again I've said, a historical gravitas to it. Why it's important. And so videos like that, I always try to integrate a little bit of history in the unboxing videos. I kind of go into that a little bit and talk about the history. I certainly did that with the Orville by Gibson in the video I put out today. So just my kind of thing. This is just what I think. If you're a YouTuber out there or you're a starting YouTuber out there and you're watching this, my advice to you is to probably look at exploring one of those 4 focus points because in this market right now, don't be a dope. Don't go out there and buy a Gibson that you really shouldn't have, and to show it off and talk about it on your channel, think that that's going to lead to viewers, because it's not. What'll lead to viewers is something cool that you do, with something that is easily obtainable by most people, or talk about it, let people know why it is what it is. So there's that. Um, I just I have no sympathy. My love hate thing for Gibson is well documented here. But when I read that article about there actually being three Appetite for Destruction Les Pauls, it just triggered something in my mind about Gibson again. It's like, oh, you guys. It's like, and even in this article, the point of this article was that, actually, this writer, who is the writer of this article? Thomas Scott McKenzie, writing. This is a while back, guys. This article is from September 21st, 2010. This is a 14 year old article, but it starts out talking about mythology is an essential part of human life, and there is a mythos around guitars, certain guitars, and I think that Gibson using that mythos in order to market and oversaturate the market with different versions of the same damn thing, and just differentiated by giving it a title. Well, it's a Sunburst Les Paul. Is it Why does it suddenly become more expensive when we put Slash's name on it? So it's still a Sunburst Les Paul. Sunburst Les Hell, you're making a copy of his Sunburst Les Paul. So it just again, it drives me kind of nuts, guys, as I think you can tell. Patrick says, I still want one Gibson guitar. Hey, again, I pointed out that there's some Gibsons out there that you might as well think about getting, because it's a better deal than some Epiphones now. Gibson TV yellow, yeah, with two P90s. I had Epiphone, custom shop Epiphone P90 in TV yellow in Singapore. I love it. Except it had a rosewood fretboard, and it was just the crappiest. Not rosewood. I'm sorry, Indian laurel. It was the bad Indian laurel. It was the time when Epiphone was using the worst Indian laurel you could imagine, and unfortunately, it ruined that guitar for me. I just couldn't fall in love with it as a result. But I have seen many examples of the real thing too. Some bases I'm lucky because I'm mainly a bass player. So no Gibson, Ivy, or Desires there. Well, there are the Gibson basses. Don't forget about those. I certainly don't. Yeah, we are just inundated, and I think that the bloom has fallen off that rose, and I think that you know the guys that I'm talking to telling me things are moving, the new stuff, expensive stuff, is not at all surprising when you're giving a choice between that new Les Paul or eating for the next 6 months or more. That's not a hard choice to make. When things are flush, the dollar moves around a lot fast. Circulation of dollars increases. As that circulation slows, so do a lot of things, or come to a complete stop, dead end in some cases. But these are outcomes that I think are possible. These are possible. My speculations on where this could lead going forward. Um, yeah, But that article triggered me, and it's from 2010, and that guy he's writing from the standpoint of what the hell exact slash copy are we talking about? This is 14 years ago. This guy's writing in a guitar magazine asking that question, and it got me asking the question. What the hell? Um, all things considered, with the original one, it just happened to have a certain sort of unique tone. Slash says with the new one that they created, we basically tried to capture that. So it's about the tone. Yeah, okay. All right. So again, very tenuous things there. Hell, everybody going up, and yes, yeah, the prices. And I opened up with that, talking about this. I try to widen the telescope a little bit to see a little bit more of the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is across the board. It's across the board. But what do we do as hobbyists and as professionals in terms of the music landscape? Well, we do the wise and prudent thing. We look at the secondary market. And we try to help our mom and pop stores where we can. Um, I sell to these mom and pop shops, but coming up here, I'm going to make a purchase. I buy things, stands, cables, pedals, whatever and whenever I can. A little bit of that money that I got from them from buying something from me, I give right back to them and keep that going, and be very conscious of that as well when you do that. And I think that's another thing that we could add to the list here of things that we could do. But yeah. Um, Whether it's about the economic impact or the future of the guitar market or any ideas for content that you guys may have, I'd like to hear it down in the comments section down below. I really do read each and every comment and comment on most of them, or I'll certainly give you a thumbs up, which means me saying, hey, man, thank you so much for commenting and showing up. I do respond to everybody in that regard, always will. Um, but I'd like to hear from you guys what you think and what you thought about the content of this channel and where I'm going forward. I've had the last 4 or 5 videos that I released have shown an increase in viewership. Uh, um, so I must be hitting something right there, showing these secondhand guitars, particularly Yamahas. People seem to really, really dig these older Yamahas and have an interest in them. And so maybe I'll look into picking up another one. Like I said, this month I got my eye on a super reel, and I'm debating. I'm looking at again, not a big margin on that one, even for what I can get at, but there's enough of a margin there where it's okay. And so, but everybody's heard of these super reels as being the shiznit. Well, let's get one in here. Let's take a look at it. Let's put it up against some of these other guitars and see how it stacks up. So there's that coming forward. We'll see. I will make it. I am certainly taking a holiday at the end of July. August, I will not be ordering at all. So this will be my last. If there is an unboxing, there'll be one this month coming up starting July, starting tomorrow. And August, no. And so that's why I'm debating getting something a little extra. So we'll see how that works out. Um, we'll see. I enjoy your YouTube channel. Thank you, Patrick. I enjoy you showing up and supporting this channel by chatting in the live stream, watching the videos. And again, if you guys really want to support this channel, take a look at my music shop. I'll put the link below in the comment section of this live stream tonight to direct you to my music shop. You can listen to the music that I produce and hopefully support us by purchasing some of it. That would be greatly and always appreciated. I'm trying to get to 5,000 subscribers, guys. by the end of this year. We are officially halfway there. I would like to endeavor to get there. I can't do it without your help. So, any ways that you can think of helping get my subscribers up is also a contribution that will not go without recognition from me. Appreciation, certainly. Take care, guys. I hope you enjoyed tonight's live stream and tonight's topic. We certainly covered quite a bit. Sunbase, I like local shops that can do repairs or at least has some connections to good instruments and amp repair. But that's where the Guitar Center, that's where they were always lacking. That's one of their things. One of the cool things about Norm's Rare Guitars and shops of that ilk that I had in Southern California is that they had repair shops. And I learned that lesson at a very young age. You want to have a repair shop. And, you know, yeah, that's another thing that we're getting channeled away from. Support your local Luther. All right, guys, you take care. I will see you coming up here and have a blessed week and be safe. I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.